Hello, welcome to a session of Code with Brylie. We are working on the Western Friend website. We've got a couple of new issues here today. One I didn't provide a description for is to add the created at field for order so that we can narrow them down by date, essentially. This is a small change. Let's get straight to it. So I've got the code open on the right-hand side. Our source code is available on github.com under the Western Friend organization and the westernfriend.org repository. So you can check out the code here. Just pop that in the chat for posterity. And maybe. Oops, there it goes. Excellent. So I've got the order details here. Whoops, and we will just close that one out to blur that later. Basically, these orders are coming from our bookstore. We have a few ways that we handle payments from PayPal when taking orders in a bookstore, when receiving donations, one-time payments, and magazine subscriptions. Subscriptions are a particular type of PayPal transaction. They're recurring, so they're treated as PayPal subscriptions. The orders are treated as one-off payments. So we've got our order model here. We're going to add a created at date equals model's date time field. I'm going to add as true. Look at that. Thank you very much, Copilot. So I think that's it. Not quite. It's pretty nice, but a couple more things. So first, I actually we'll need to start Docker. Where are you, Docker? I want to add it to the admin interface so that we can filter by that field. The reason this is useful, and it was a complete oversight on my part, but you know, we get a question about an order, or we're shipping orders that were placed in a month. You know, maybe they shipped them in batches or something like that, or in the last week. So yeah, we want to be able to filter and sort and search by date. And I don't know why, I just didn't think of it. For some reason, I thought it would be managed through the PayPal interface, and which is the other issue we'll be working on today. We have these PayPal order ID and PayPal payment IDs, which don't seem to link to anything in PayPal. We're getting data back from PayPal. It's giving us these IDs, but when we search for them in the PayPal admin interface, they're no results. So there's another field called transaction ID, I think, and we're going to try to add that in a separate pull request. All right, so now our database is running. Make migrations, and essentially the default, I thought auto now add is true. Okay. I think I can just take this off. Just to auto now is true. I was trying to think of the user interface, or the user use cases of wanting to modify that, and if we want to change that created app for some reason, if it would reset it back. I don't think so. We will have to cross that bridge later. All right, so add. That's that. And the other thing, 007. Oh. So adding the field in a commit. And we have this wagtail hooks, which lets us, what the heck? Oh, yeah, it's the sorcery plugin. Interesting. Think about uninstalling that. It's another generative AI tool. The list display should also include the, probably none of these. Those are all in the inspect view. We'll put it as the first, and we will add it to the filter, the list filter. Because when you inspect the order, you get all the street address and everything. That way our table stays a little bit clean, and we're gonna have to work with this table. I'm a bit afraid of that because it's a bit complicated. But it should be okay. So I think that's about it. Now, I haven't been working in this in the development environment. So let's get it running. And I don't know if we have dummy data. This is kind of cowboy code here. There we go. So books, do we even have any books? No, let's set one up though. In our store, we'll add a book. One, and it's 10 and 12. It's available, and we will publish that. View live. We'll go to our bookstore and see book one, add to cart. We've got that. We will go to checkout. Total and never. So the PayPal integration is not working, but that should have created the, I will need this to test. I'll have to get this PayPal integration working here in just a second. Nonetheless, I think we can check this out real quick. I should now have an order. Here it is, and created that right there. Dum dum dum. This is something it'll probably be confusing. $10:40 a.m. So this is in Pacific Standard Time. Okay, so our site default time zone is in Pacific time. Okay, that's by design. That won't be confusing because the editor and the person managing this site is in California, so that's their time zone. So that's good. Now we can look at the orders by created at date. So everything's working there. And then the PayPal thing, how did I do that? So I think we need an environment, because if I look at the inspector here, function of 12, no, I don't always need that. Delivery source servers on 400. PayPal is not defined. 403. And I think I need the environment. Let me check this off screen real quick. Haven't been working with the PayPal stuff lately, so Jana debug is true. And so in our environment example, and in our environment file, we don't have any PayPal metadata, so I believe we're going to have to, I should have documented this, I probably did. PayPal client environment. So, let's just put these in our example file. PayPal client ID, PayPal client secret, and PayPal. We're not using the webhooks because we're managing everything on PayPal, so I'm not receiving any payment updates or any of that stuff. That's why this transaction ID is going to be so important. PayPal client ID and client secret. Very good. All right, so we've got those. I'll just commit those as part of this pull request. We switched from Braintree to PayPal, and I just had neglected to update that. And those. And to order list display and filter. And I'll take just a moment here to get my PayPal credentials off screen. It'll take a little bit because, let's see, where did I put all that? Need to get to the sandbox. Huh. I'm gonna have to cowboy code this one. Well, the payment's not essential, but it will be in the callback, so we'll have to really closely read the docs, and I'm not gonna be able to test it. I don't have the sandbox credentials for the organization account. I'll have to, and I'd have to get those from the editor. I've deleted them on purpose, so I don't just keep them around. I don't keep them in my personal email and password collection. Yeah, so, all right, that's that. It was a mistake. So I think we can publish this branch, merge this feature, work on another bug report. And this will close 1071. Cool. This is an implicit date created at date. It's part of the Django's core functionality to auto now true. So to set that to now, I don't think we needed a unit test for that. Cool. Okay. Squash and merge that. Next, let's go. Yeah. Next task is, ooh, it's a big one. Let me look at the PayPal integration a little bit and choose my own adventure here. Essentially, we have this PayPal module, and when we're placing an order, we get a response back. And the PayPal library, to my knowledge, doesn't have typing, so it's really unfortunate. So I'm just getting this dictionary back. So we make the requests, we get an order, we get the response. And this is the thing that's throwing us. Order ID is not actually in the PayPal admin interface. When I search for this order in PayPal, it can't find anything, even though in our, it gives us something. This is actually giving us something. So I'm thinking this is going to be the transaction ID. And again, this is just like a dictionary coming back untyped from PayPal. So let's check out the PayPal docs. There could be, I searched for a better PayPal library with maybe stronger typing, type hints, type annotations. PayPal developer experience, it's been a few months, granted, since I've been working with this code, but it was just like frustrating and a bit awkward. It wasn't my cup of tea. Now it looks like it's getting better though. The developer docs are interactive. And what we're going to do is check out standard. I just need to get the API docs though. Check. Maybe that's not what I searched for. PayPal docs crashed Chrome. Something happened there. Cosia. REST API docs, here we go. And we are calling the order checkout orders endpoint, create an order. And what do we get in the response? I would just love a typed response, and if they have a library for that. They deprecated their Python stuff though. It's like all REST, and you know they have this nice open API spec, so maybe I can make use of that. What do we get? We get a response samples. All right, it's a 200 response. See, I get this ID back, which is just not useful. Not useful. I'm not even sure what this is for. I don't know yet. This is a premature survey. All right, so let me check the full flow then. We create an order, then we capture the order. And I think this is where we're going to get back the payment ID. This is part of the problem with why this page is not useful. It's because it's kind of hot garbage layout. And the response. See, it's like all they give me is this ID. And this is, it's not used in the interface. It's different with the transaction ID in the interface is different when we search for this string across all fields in the PayPal order listing, or even the order ID field. And there's another one we searched in the transaction ID field. This isn't come up with any results, no matter what our filter criteria are. And in all their examples, they're using the same order ID. So it's kind of illustrative that that's like the canonical identifier. That's the correct identifier. I mean, why wouldn't it work? I don't know. That's what I'm literally saving in our database. Headers. We're using the PayPal order ID to capture the order. It's what we get when we create it. It's what we save in the database. In the view, the response, we add the order ID here. And the response ID, which is this field. And we turn that to the client where they can go to the next step to capture the payment for this order. And PayPal wants this in the context, this order ID. It's like, yeah, I don't understand why. Why we wouldn't be able to find orders using this ID in the PayPal interface. So to the best of my knowledge, this is probably a PayPal bug. Based on what I can see in their docs, and they keep asking me this thing. So this is what I'm talking about. The PayPal developer experience is just really, at first glance, it's like, okay, cool, this is going to work. It's going to be a good experience. But then the deeper I've gotten into it, it's just really, I don't know, fraught, awkward, subpar. We use this thing called Braintree, which was really, well, somewhat improved, but PayPal acquired Braintree. I don't know what the plans are for those, if they're going to unify those services or what, I recommend looking elsewhere though, like Stripe or something like that probably. Anyway, we're using PayPal for legacy reasons. It's popular and familiar with a lot of our users, and the organization already has PayPal set up. They don't want to worry about other financial documents having multiple payment providers and things like that. So we went with that. All right. One thing I can do is make an additional REST call to show order details, ID, payment source, account ID. If I can get a transaction ID, reference ID. Perform a patch on the order after it is created, but before user authorized. Whatever. Damn. Version 1 API. Their whole website is just crap. I'm sorry, I'm so frustrated and flustered. Yeah. There are two transaction IDs for the seller and for the buyer. You as an API caller can only see the seller transaction ID, capture ID, not the buyer ID. Is there any reason you have to show the buyer transaction ID? I just need a way to link it in their user interface. Capture ID. This is exactly the thing. We're trying to search for it in our table of recent activities. This could be also a familiarization issue. Maybe we're looking on the wrong reports. Maybe we need to be here. I'm going to suggest that we open a support request with PayPal to resolve this issue. I'm going to leave the code base as it is. I think capturing the order ID should be sufficient to link the order that we receive and the payment to the PayPal administrative page. Yeah, and tell me about the response body schema, the response schema. 200 successful response. Here we are. Updated time. ID. The ID of the order. Well, yeah, that's self-explanatory. And even when I'm in full screen, their docs are borked. There we go. So not a lot I can use at the top level, This should be enough. This should be enough. Let me check the... Hey, OS. I'm going to keep leaving them. So we don't have an external reference ID, description, customer ID, invoice ID, API caller provided, ID, the PayPal generated ID for the purchase unit, soft descriptor, item, amount, payee, payment instruction. I don't think it's going to be there. Okay, I have to move on from this task. This is where, if I could get the sandbox credentials, it would be helpful. All right, I'm in the sandbox. So, whoa. Apps and credentials. It's sandbox stuff, but you know, it's apps and credentials. Yeah, there we go. One moment. So yeah, apparently I had already done this. All right, so we've got our PayPal sandbox credentials there. So we're going to create an incognito window. We're going to log in as the business account for that incognito window. And then we've got some money. 36 additional USD, 2 unpaid subscriptions. Okay. Sales. Probably activity, all transactions. Couldn't find any transactions. So that's probably my problem is I'm declining their cookies and it breaks their site. Yeah, I don't mind functional cookies, but I don't want a bunch of other stuff. All right, so on the server, go to localhost, bookstore, add to cart, checkout. Now we should get the PayPal widget here. So yeah, this is another problem, is their pop-up crashes. And this one's hard to catch. I forget the reason for it. All right. So what we need to do then is check the templates for payment process, PayPal. So this is a Western Friend order ID getting passed in. I don't see the order. So we have a script, we have a button. We display this to the user, this information. Then we have a button container. We're going to run this script.js. And we get this, all the data passed in through attributes, payment amount, WF order ID. Now that's the number 2. But if I look at source code here for this script. So PayPal does these weird things like embedding an iframe in your document. So that's already kind of just strange. Just use Stripe. But I have my script, a couple of scripts here. Okay, CSRF token. Order ID number 2, payment. Okay, so yeah, how does it get the order ID to be passed, which is being passed in? Because these are just generic URL endpoints in our service. So let's see what we do here. So we get that. From our backend, I think. Cancel an error here. So yeah, we're fetching that. So log that. Refresh that. So yeah, we're just passing our Western Friend order ID and creating a PayPal order in the back end and getting that order ID here. Refresh. So I think not sure exactly when this gets invoked. It's all handled by this PayPal library. The buttons API here. And it makes a post to our endpoint. And it is indeed undefined. Now I think what happened though, was when I created order number 2, it didn't actually get a PayPal order ID. So that was my fault. Okay, so that we can fix. Yes, all right. So yeah, if we look over here on the Western Friend admin, it's a lot to keep in your head, you know, a lot to remember. A lot of times, code you wrote a week, a month, 6 months ago. All right, so there's no PayPal payment ID, no PayPal order ID. This is what this should be called, actually, PayPal order ID. So I just need to actually delete these. But strangely, actually, wait, it should have had that. Why didn't it get that? Let's see again. If I go back to the bookstore, because now we have the PayPal app set up, we've got the environment variables configured. What is it? Checkout and debug. We don't need all this Sentry stuff. Recipient. Create the order. So now yeah, we didn't get anything back from PayPal. Dang it. So I need to run this in debug mode. I think that's that's going to help us. So we will. All right, so now we got the debugger running. The breakpoints I'd like to create. Here. And that should happen back. I think we should get this when we come over here. So I'll create an order here. Orders that orders slash create. Let's find that. View URLs. Create order. Okay, so this isn't PayPal app. We'll go to the orders. Payment, orders, views, URLs, orders create. It's going to make the view create order. Call this order create. Views order create. Yeah, this literally just creates an order. Yeah, it just creates the order in our database. That's all this field does. Then when we're going to process the order, that's when the PayPal service gets called. There we go. And that's when it creates on, this is when it creates on the PayPal side. So we're going to get some, we'll step over this. So our body JSON as our Western Front Order ID. It's going to try to get it out of the database. Then it's going to try the PayPal create order endpoint. Unauthorized for URL. Oh, okay. 401. Yeah. So I put the credentials in there. App and credentials. And these are sandbox credentials. It's not that big of a deal to show them on stream, but we'll continue that. So that's the problem. I'm copying these into our environment. And they're in the environment because that's how this button is rendered. The button won't render without those credentials. All right, let me see here, inspect. I'll just double check this environment. I see. Okay. I made sure to source the environment variables. It could be that Django environ's not loading them. For whatever reason, I've got to make sure that they are in the environment. There they are on the screen. So I was trying to avoid. Anyway, there's sandbox. And I've double checked it here that they are in the environment. I have this little script to export all of those, but I'm pretty sure we're using Django environment, so I don't know what's going on with that. But now we're running. And now when I create the order, it's still getting me an internal server error. And the deal I don't know why it doesn't realize it's a Django thing. All right. So I need to go into where we're getting our header. We're constructing our headers. They're right here, PayPal auth headers. So we get the order, no problem. We get into the create order block. So it could be that we're getting the auth token error here. So one deal, maybe that our environment variable is incorrect. I don't see why. Maybe it needs to be capital. Let's try one at a time. That's where it's going to crash. Right here. Yep. We're calling the sandbox URL with the client ID and secret that are in our sandbox API. Yeah, I mean, V1. But all of this comes from their own code, PayPal auth.py. I don't write any of that. I just get the headers. I mean, this is a function that they gave us. I'm just using that. Type ignore. They're just So basically I'm hitting a brick wall here. You know, this has been my experience with PayPal. Clearly it is picking up the fact that we're in the sandbox environment. So that environment variable is correct. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is me. I named this. So settings here. V2. Gosh. Well, that's another problem. Let's see. Here we can check our settings to make sure that these auth tokens are being passed in. So I don't need that. Oh, okay. So let me double check that. Okay, so there's a copy button on the PayPal page, when I copied it, when I pressed the copy button to copy the secret key, it didn't work. So it kind of like my copy buffer still had the client ID. So I accidentally put the client ID and the secret to the same value. So that's why that wasn't working. That's why the authentication is failing. And that's why we have the same value here. All right, cool. So yeah, getting familiar with the code. I haven't written this in a while. It's kind of a simple mistake to make. I'm going to make some progress here. Just keep on. Just push forward a bit. Now we should get proper response from PayPal. And we have different values there, yeah. With response JSON back. Then it wants me to sign in. I will use my credentials. Sandbox account. And now I can't use my business account, or can I? No, it won't let you. So you have to use a personal sandbox user. I wish sites wouldn't automatically translate. So this personal one should work. Try again. All right. So let me go here to this transactions window. It's just a bit of a pain. All right. I need like 2 incognito windows. PayPal. This personal one should allow me to log in. They have personal and business sandbox accounts. So this part's now been fixed. I don't need all these breakpoints. I don't need the print statements anymore. All right, ready? Come on. Try this one more time. copy the password of this personal example account, which is not the business account, which should allow me to test transactions. Now, the whole point of this sandbox account. Okay, now I've been making mistakes here. I know this PayPal code was mine and I miscopied the authentication tokens. I keep getting this pop-up, how easy or difficult was for you to complete your task using this page. So what I will do is try creating a testing account personal. Now I've got a personal US account. We'll sign out. We'll change. I will copy the email from this personal US account. Not that it should matter, but these are testing accounts in the developer dashboard for the sandbox. Nice. Click here, continue. And it keeps showing me that pop-up, how easy or difficult were you. All right. There we go. All right, cool. Something strange. Payment was successful. Processed successfully. Okay, wow. Now, all of this was done, so, and I'm going to need a third incognito window, I think. So that we can list the orders, actually just, and we should now have this payment ID. This is what we were after that whole time. Wow. I'm going to delete this one because that didn't work. And so I want to be able to search by this. This is the only thing that comes back in the PayPal response. It's just this ID. There's some other information, but this is the top level identifier. So now if we log into the PayPal sandbox, but in the incognito, so we can see we made a payment. If I log out and log back into the sandbox with the business, the US account, password. We have our test account, sales, just show me activity. Nothing. So if we log out of that account, SB 2535507. And we try logging in with this other business account. All events, nothing happened. All right, so then I noticed on this business example user, there's like a client ID and client secret down here for a default application. So first thing, I'm just going to delete one of these. This is just causing too much confusion here, probably. Delete that. Then I'll go to apps and credentials. And extra testing tools, sandbox accounts. I'm going to delete these. Can't. Finish ones. Can't delete those. Nice. Then what I'm going to do is take this US one. It's in English. And there's no apps associated with that one. Okay. All right. Got a SOAP API and a sandbox API, REST API. So we're going to copy these and bring up VS Code. go to our environment file. Copy the secret. Stop the debugging server. Run the server again. May or may not need debugging mode. Alright, so this is not my incognito account. The incognito account is here. Incognito window. I will log out. I know a little bit of Finnish. I'm working on it. Nonetheless, we need to create a new order. Check out. Got the button. Now we can sign in with, this is the tricky part. I use the personal account for the US. Cool. We can make the purchase. Payment was successful. I can verify that. We have a new payment. The PayPal payment ID. To that. I'm going to delete this one. Just delete it in Wagtail. That's the one I just created. So now, back to the sandbox. Log in. We're going to log in with, I forget which one it was. Man. Yep. Going to log in with the business account now. So we're going from personal to business. We should have a payment. Money in. Yes. All right, so here's the challenge. In Wagtail, I've got this orders screen, right? And I get this. We'll edit the order. That's glitchy. We're going to fix that. So this is what we get back from the API when I create the order. When we create and then capture the order, the payment comes back here. The order and the payment are the same. That's all the information we have from the API. Now, if I do this and I go to activity, all transactions, and I just put this in, couldn't find any transactions matching your criteria. It's straight from the API. It's exactly what I got from the API. Now, if I say, oh, okay, well, it was actually, that was the order ID. That should surely return something. Nope. That's the problem we have. That's essentially the bug. PayPal gives me this thing that's basically useless. And that's my overall sentiment of PayPal. We need to cross-reference these things. We need to be able to take payments people make and find out the purpose. And I can't believe that PayPal just doesn't let you filter on this order ID straight from their API docs. And the response right there. That's what we're getting. It's useless. I don't understand how you could do that. How you could design a system that's just that kind of broken. They're even using this order as a, you know, an internal reference for all their HateOAS endpoints, right? What does ID mean? Order? I'm creating an order. And I get the ID of the order, right? It says the ID of the order. So the ID of the order is there. And then I go to search for that order, which here it is, the payment from. So I have an order ID, I have the ID of an order. So I say, oh, okay, I have the order ID, I have the ID of an order that came back in the PayPal. I don't make this, our code doesn't make this up. It's not truncating it or anything, it's just storing it. When I search, we have transaction ID. So that's it. That's as much energy as I'm going to put into this. At least I was able to verify it and look very closely. Search across all fields. What do we do with this? Like this is a transaction, so it's clearly different. He says transactions, clearly different from an order. I kind of get that. How do I list the orders though, right? Here's the transaction. Unified transactions. Okay. But it's gonna be the same problem as order ID, and if I just use this, it'll fuzzy search across them all. Doesn't do anything. So that was the original question. I looked on Stack Overflow. We have the order ID. How do we get the transaction? How do we link a transaction? An order ID is returned when you create an order via REST API. It's a unique identifier, a specific order you have created. A transaction ID is returned when you complete a transaction. For example, you create an order with an intent to authorize and capture it. A unique transaction ID for the captured transaction will be returned within the API response, and this transaction ID can be used to count orders capture. All right. The same would apply if you create an order with the intent to authorize, then authorize the payment for an order. An authorization transaction ID would be returned within the API response. I think we were using the capture response. Captures 0. Maybe that's what they mean by transaction ID. Authorization ID. So authorization's 0. That's really kludgy way of getting it, but okay. All right, so they've got that, and they get all the pseudo in the JSON, and yeah, capture ID. This is a transaction ID. Okay, nice. Consistency. Well, that would be nice. Transactions ID. All right, so let's see if we're using, essentially, are we using capture or authorize? I believe we're using capture. And if that's the case, then I can get a little bit of metadata. So what would, I'm trying to remember what part that's in. All right, so get the process.js. The ID. These are the same. Get the response, the result here. We don't do anything with it. All right. Yeah, so we're using the capture URL. All right. Authorize. capture. The capture, and I'm just going to downvote this every time I see it. Damn, it's nested twice. So response. Purchase units, 0. Payments, 0. Or payments, captures, 0. ID. So I think what we're going to do here, result dot purchase units. Zero. Can you see this is just really, people have had to do this enough times that Copilot knows about it. So what we'll do is we'll log this, and if this works, if this is going to get us something, this is dangerous code. Problem is, any of these could be null. I'm not familiar enough with JSON, modern JavaScript too. Just question mark. All right, cool. I like that. Undefined. Might be undefined. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Question mark. Python doesn't have that. It's pretty handy. Now, I'm just going to see if we get this. If we do, then I have to create an endpoint to handle this, to capture this. It's not too hard. Problem, maybe, we've got the order ID here, so yeah, we'll just take that, well, I need the Western friend ID. We might still be able to get it from the current URL. I'll have to take a look. I'll look at that in a moment. First, let's just see if we get something in the console. The whole result, and particularly transaction ID. Looking good. We're gonna do this. This is gonna work. I've got a branch started, and we're gonna make another payment. We're gonna make another order and another payment. And we're gonna open the console so I can see console logs and bookstore. Just need to autocomplete these. That would be handy. All right, so we get the PayPal order ID, and I'll have to log out with my business account. Business. I'm just gonna put these sandbox accounts over here for the time being. And where did my sandbox accounts go? That's the business one. And I'll use I have to log in again. It's needing me to verify the sandbox account with my phone or PayPal app. Oh, I see. Settings. I'll be right back. All right, verified. All set. Cool. Sandbox accounts. personal sandbox account. Password. Should have some money on it. Okay, we'll try it again. It's all right. Try one more time. Okay, we're logged in already. Cool. PayPal just does this whole out of band process. It's really frustrating. I see what happened. So it redirected us before I had a chance to check. No problem. Super strict validation. Yeah, all right, so we didn't get at least the transaction ID from this. That's all right. We got the response. Let's take a look. Yeah. All right, so wait a minute. Response type basic. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. So this order capture URL is calling our server. So we'll check out PayPal, capture order view, which there's the create. And here's the capture. Good. So we check that the order exists, then we get the PayPal response. Yeah, and then we're gonna get that transaction ID. Let's see how well. No, it was a good guess though. Let's see how well Copilot knows what I'm after. Maybe if I use the actual vernacular from the example response. Orders and capture payment for order. With the response, purchase units, capture ID. Let's see if I can just get that. Nope. It doesn't have an idea. Okay. So yeah, there we go. So the Python's a bit uglier. We're using default values. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I can verify that. But essentially, purchase units is a list of containing dictionaries. And then we'll get this. So we'll be guaranteed to have a 0th item. And then payments is a dictionary. That is correct. Captures is a list of dictionaries, and the 0th item, which was at least going to be a thing, will have an ID or an empty string. Wow. Okay. I can print or just use a debugger here, right? Maybe we'll do that. Debugger. Breakpoint there. Oh, maybe I have to save it. I haven't saved it, so that line doesn't exist yet. Yeah, let's check it out. Let's check it out. So let's see where we're at here. And I can actually clean this up. Yeah, so we're doing most everything on the server side, which I like. That was one of the things. And I'll restore this. Complete the purchase. And then we'll step over that. We did. We got it. Got the transaction ID. The order ID, I don't know what to even use it for. But I think this is what we were after. I'm going to copy the value and look it up. And then we'll save it into the database also. So, I have to switch. Now if I just search for this, got it. Oh man. Need a little sip of water real quick. We'll add a field to the database, migrate that in, capture that here, display it in the user interface, call it good. All right, be right back. Excellent. So, we've got the transaction ID or an empty string at this point. All we need to do is modify the order model now and add a new field. That's not the order model. Model would be models.py under the orders app. And we will I'll just add a new field. We'll leave the 3 in. We'll stop the debugger. I can close the process and the view. You know, it doesn't really make sense to call this 2 things when that's what they're calling it. They're calling it, I guess, those 2 things, interestingly. Okay. And do that. And before we do that, I'll need to, there we go, migrate this in. Cool. Then in the user interface, when listing the store orders, we want to search for everything now is this transaction ID. Very good. So it should redirect the next time I do the order. Run the server. I will commit this. We know we're going to add that field. I don't think there's going to be other changes to the models pie, but just in case. We'll put that there. A little bit of lint and the auto-generated code. I tried to ignore that. This will we don't need that. We'll discard that. The view, I'll leave that prompt comment in there, so it's kind of also prompting my memory. Why the heck did I do that? Memorials, so then books. Add to cart. Now we know. Now we know. Faces. This is where Zvere. Cool. Here we go. No! Yes. Yes. So I opened the terminal. I need to source these environment variables. I think I just didn't want to install Django environment. I'm not sure what happened. Payment was processed successfully. Now we have a PayPal transaction ID. And now, pardon the mess, this is also a wagtail thing that's going to be fixed. I'm going to be fixing this soon. Now that we're here, we have some new stuff. If I put that in there, boom. Okay, that's exactly what we needed. So we're good to go. You know, for a little bonus, it would be nice to just like make this a link, and the editor can just click and it'll take her right to the PayPal. He or she, I don't know who the future editor will be. We will do that as an enhancement when we next look at this page. I need to change the way this page is generated as part of our continuing upgrade to Wagtail 6 generic listings, generic something like that. I think they're generic listings. This is made with the Wagtail 5 model admin, which is now removed from Wagtail core, and it's a bit, you know, kind of buggy. So we don't want to keep it. Anyway, let's commit these changes. We'll open the pull requests and we'll call it a night. It's almost 11 o'clock here. So yeah, I think we're good to go. I will just say we persist. In order. And we'll display the PayPal transaction ID. Publish. Create pull request. This was at one point helping me write the description. That was nice. But it stopped doing that. That's the problem with these models. They change so much. You can't control when they change. You can't predict what and when they'll change. They're just messy. Useful, but somewhat unreliable so far. So if we go to our project, I'm just gonna get the issue number. I'll just say the one-time one. We're gonna kind of close that. This number 1070. And 1038. We'll create that because they're roughly the same. We discussed today, books orders now is being resolved and those direct payments won't be listed there. So now we'll hop over to our pull requests. Wow. It's been a pretty epic session. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to summarize the changes. It's kind of like a developer diary of sorts, so people can see what we're doing. and it may or may not be useful in their projects. Also, in case people don't want to watch the whole live stream but want to get the general, you know, in a nutshell, what did we change today? I mean, this one was so small, it's not really worth mentioning. That's true, that's true. That's what I was thinking about. Actually, yeah, that's really important. It's just Django was complaining that it needed a default value, which is kind of strange. Hello. Evening here, yeah. Pentakill. I clutch Pentakill. How you doing? Time is it in your neck of the woods? It's almost 11. It's 10:42 here. Well, let me see. We're looking at the order model. Let me see what that would do if I change that to auto now add and try to run this migration. It was going to ask for a default for the ones that existed. I understand now. Okay, so not too far time zone wise. Yeah. So you're interested in like web development, Python development? What brings you by the Twitch stream? I'll include this in there. It's a bit confusing, admittedly, but QA and automation testing, very cool. So Python's pretty useful oftentimes in QA. I know Selenium is pretty popular for Python testing. We use that in a couple of projects where I've worked. Yep, Selenium, cool. What do you think of it? I'm trying to remember what tools we use. So to automatically generate like the Selenium cases, there was one where you could just do it through point and click kind of a thing. It was pretty cool. Consider handling potential key error exceptions. While the current implementation uses Git to safely access nested dictionary keys, it might still be beneficial to wrap this in a try except. So these are automatically generated by sort of an AI linter called Sorcery AI. So I'm on the fence about how useful they are, but this is a little bit higher level, feedback than you would get from a traditional linter. Beyond just like code style and indentation and formatting and variable naming conventions, it's also kind of showing some gotchas that would be harder to catch with like a regex approach. So they're using the natural language capabilities of these large language models. CSS selector is better. Yes, XPath is much. Yeah, that makes sense. Have you checked out the Mozilla Developer Network docs, MDN? Might be a good reference, I'm not sure. Just in case. But yeah, I agree the XPath is pretty challenging, but maybe more powerful than CSS selectors. I don't know. You can get pretty far though. Anyway, I like this Mozilla Developer Network. It's a pretty good one. It's not too spammy. Also, what's your take on using these large language models as a developer assistant? Are you experimenting with any of the conversational agents or anything like that as part of your workflow? Are you working on an open source project? You might be able to qualify for Copilot, for example. And you can see this MDN is also offering AI help. The problem, I think, is that they're wanting to sort of silo the help towards MDN documents. And I think there's some value to be found in the more general purpose conversational tools that can kind of search the web even, but also have been just trained on a very large corpus and can essentially synthesize information, some hallucinations like humans as well, misinformation, but potentially not disinformation like humans can generate. And anyway, I've been getting a lot of help from these large language models. Yeah, true. It's like all these large language models are trained on just huge amounts of web data, huh? And they had to, who knows, they're not really citing a lot of the data sources, but Common Crawl was one that I think has been used as a source for a lot of LLM data. And it's sort of also a shield for these large language companies like OpenAI, so they can have, plausible deniability or something like that. I don't know what the word is, but phrases, but where they can say, oh, it was actually a nonprofit that got all the data and gave it to us. We didn't do that. We didn't violate the copyright of all this. Anyway, so I'm not saying it's black or white. It's clearly a complex issue. I don't know how it'll shake out, the copyright legislation, and whether or not large language model output is a derivative work that's protected under copyright law, or if training is an infringing act, creating a model, compressing the knowledge and finding latent representations, creating like a vector space of knowledge, is that an infringing act? I suspect it's not, but I'm not an expert and I'm not a legal scholar. I'm interested and I use the tools though. I believe in the agile philosophy, safeguard towards human agents, specifically in QAE. AI is kind of the quality. Yeah, it's hit or miss. So it doesn't quite help you figure out the test cases for usability and user experience. Yeah, and that's true. There's a lot of subjective stuff in the design. That's an interesting point. Yeah, if they could help you craft the test scenarios. I was thinking of it more from a code perspective, help you write the tests. Once you know the scenario, feeding that into the AI, giving it enough information about the user interface. If it's a web app, you can paste in the code and it can help you write, tests essentially. That's where I found a lot of use. generating code and generating tests, particularly GitHub Copilot, since it's like integrated into my development environment. It can kind of see the code. It can see what files are open and how you've written previous tests and how you've defined your your interface. So I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that for kind of boilerplatey stuff. But I've also used it as a tutor to help me understand things that are confusing or that are new, which pretty much every day, I'm in that situation. And there's no shame in that. That's the way of the gun. That's the way of our, our career here. Information. Like today I had help to write some Python that was, and JavaScript that was a bit tricky. I can give you an example. This one that's here under review, it actually knows enough about the PayPal response structure. It wrote this piece for me, and then I read it slowly and carefully, and I cross-referenced it against the PayPal documentation, which is kind of borked, but nonetheless it's here, somewhere like that. And anyway, it worked in the long run. So now I'm getting help again from another AI agent that's not sure how it works. It's a black box, of course, but it's clearly doing more than linting my code. It's giving stylistic advice about using Git with default values that I could still encounter a key error. It's a bit hallucinating there, I think. And I think I did manage to I think this is fairly safe, but it's saying just take a little extra caution there. So maybe I'll commit that. Okay, you're a law student, so that's even better, because as a student, you might actually be interested from a law perspective, legal perspective, about the copyright issues and the ethical issues as well. But as a student, you qualify for free access to GitHub Copilot. I think I can't remember the student developer pack is basically what you get access to. Yep, I'm helping mentor this guy, student here, and we meet once a week. And we're both learning game development with the Godot game engine, and I use Copilot a lot, and we're using the generative AI a lot, and we made sure that he was able to get it for free because he's in school. And I think this is it. Let me double check here. Yeah, you just have to have you have to be in an institution, recognized educational institution, and show them that you have a student ID, basically. And then what it includes is a bunch of stuff. Let's see if there's a list here. Well, basically you get Copilot. That's the thing. Yeah, I think so. You sign up with an EDU email, and if I recall correctly, I can't remember if we had to take a picture of his student ID or not. Maybe the email was enough. Yeah, but yeah, so definitely sign up and let me know what you're thinking about Copilot, and I can also show you some tips on how I use it as well. And what my day job, the company provides us, all of the employees, let's see, we have ChatGPT, and then Copilot is also there, yeah. So using them both on a daily basis. And I think a lot of companies are probably, on the fence, depending how they view these technologies. But in a way, I think they're kind of amplifiers. They can help accelerate certain types of work, certain tasks that you're doing. Certainly with knowledge work and legal stuff, I'm sure there's a lot of latent knowledge in there that needs to be fact checked and verified. And with code output, I always really scrutinize that. I'm very careful, and we have peer review and everything so don't just use the raw output without really understanding it. You have to still know your stuff, and it helps you understand it. You can say, please explain your reasoning here, or please explain how this code works. And sometimes in the course of discussion, we'll be noticing that the code at first output had some kind of a bug, logical error, or misconception about a library, how it works, and I'll revise that with the model as well. Say, hey, that won't work, and it'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I should have done this instead. So it's kind of a dialogue. Keep that in mind too, just in case you're not familiar with the process. So I think the assumption is that a lot of times you just say, make me a sandwich, and it just makes you the best sandwich. But really gotta be specific. Say, I like whole wheat bread, not too much mayonnaise, but I really like Dijon mustard. I'm vegetarian, so we need some vegetarian salami or something, slices, and some cheese, and lettuce and cucumber, tomato are cool, but I'm not a big fan of pickles. Please make me a sandwich. Then you're gonna get a much better sandwich. But you might be like, oh, but that sandwich has a bit much mayonnaise on there. Can you put a little more mustard and less mayo? And it'll make one a little bit better that way. So it's just a conversation. Yeah, that's cool, and that's interesting. The GPT 4.0 is general release. And what's your process there with your the way you're approaching the task? For example, your resume task. Did you just say, here's my resume, make it better? Or how do you approach those types of things? I've kind of got some ideas on how I approach bigger writing and revision tasks like that. Okay, cool, you got a big one, the big prompt. But basically, I think it's good to hey, thanks Anna, by the way, for the subscribe. I'm sorry I didn't mention that. So when I'm writing a paper or blog post or resume or whatever, project charter, any kind of lengthy document, if I'm writing myself even, I'll apply this approach where I kind of outline it. I think through the big term goals, and then with a prompt, you try to put as much of that detail in there. And start with the overview, and then start narrowing down the sections, and then iteratively expanding the sections, in fact, through the conversation. All right, so I'm a new QA software tester without a college degree. I dropped out of law school this year to pursue this dream. I did a software testing boot camp online. I'm currently taking 2 other courses, one in Selenium and one in Agile Teams. What is the best way I can present the information on a CV to a potential recruiter and maximize the chances to get hired? Interesting. So that's the beginning of the conversation. Yeah, I don't want to ask too many details on stream and whatnot, but this is the kind of stuff I'm going through with some people. I'm helping in a group. We have this peer group in town, call it Tech Ventures, and our idea is that, I've been really lucky in my career, and I've had some really fortuitous help and circumstances, and I kind of want to pay that forward. And there are people who are on a similar path, they're wanting to change careers or learn a new skill like technology, and we need to sort of help polish our image and present ourselves and develop our skills and things like that. So part of our development is to work on our LinkedIn profiles, our CVs, and then figure out what's your kind of dream, what do you see on the horizon, where do you want to go, and help chart a path towards that goal. But being heart driven and not, we want to make a living, but it's important that you feel like excitement, like you have an actual sensation, a felt sense that this is something I want to do, and not just a rational, logical, I want to do this because it's lucrative or because it's giving me a lot of free time. It shouldn't just be logical, it should be physical, embodied sense, and it should make sense rationally as well. But the problem is the first thing, so one of the guys I'm helping, he's got a background in kind of finance, and he was thinking he wanted to learn cybersecurity. So we started, we're like, okay, well, what do we need to learn cybersecurity? We started developing a curriculum and finding some online study materials and all that stuff, and some tasks, bite-sized chunks. And after about a month of that, he realized he didn't like it at all. And so his initial motivation for learning cybersecurity was because probably, if I were to speculate, it's because it's sounds lucrative, high demand, intriguing, but it wasn't something he really was interested in. And now he has pivoted to learning 3D modeling with Blender, and we're working on some game art assets, and he's got a vision of where he wants to go. He wants to model automobiles and do sort of industrial design, 3D modeling. Whether or not the future that'll open for him, it's undecided, we'll see, but he's doing the work, and it's something he's really interested in. Yeah, and keep in mind with the prompt, it's not just a one-off thing, right? So let me see if I can use your prompt real quick. And let me just hop over here. See what we can do here. So your goal is to have a CV, or yeah, because the fact that you're taking a boot camp, you completed a boot camp, and that you're taking 2 courses isn't probably going to be compelling to a recruiter or a hiring team, because you got to get past the recruiter to a hiring team, and they're going to look for experience, and not unless you're going for an internship, and not kind of like I'm in the course right now experience. They're going to ask you about prior work experience or portfolio, depending on what kind of job you're applying for. If it's entry level, hiring team will be more forgiving, but and if it's internship, then they're expecting you to need much more training on the job. That's the purpose. And there will probably be a take-home test or kind of a whiteboard or coding session. Those are pretty common. So let me try something out real quick. So yeah, a little background helps. Let's check it out. I have a friend who's a business analyst in a major company, quitting next month, and has told you to send your CV ASAP, and they'll put an insider still. Really not an idea of what to expect. That's good though, because there's basically 2 doors you can enter companies in, probably. Maybe you can come in through the roof. Some people do that, I suppose. But front door and back door. And the front door is essentially where everyone's lining up. They post a job on LinkedIn or something. You probably have heard this. Anyway, it's kind of conventional knowledge, but to illustrate that you're coming in the back door. So you're not coming in through necessarily the CV pool of a public job posting and having to get through that filter. You're actually having a small, you've done the networking, you've got a friend, you've got a small world connection, and you've got your foot in the door, and somebody who will vouch for you. That's already giving you a major advantage. But you'll still need to convince the hiring team that you're a good candidate. Your friend can probably vouch for your reputation and get you the initial interview. But yeah, so let's see. Yeah, very cool. So you've heard that front door, back door kind of analogy. All right, but let's see. If you don't mind, I paste this quality assurance deal in there. I won't give any, we'll try to keep it anonymous. And then so what we'll do is, I don't know, we'll just improvise here a little bit. Let me just think for a second. I'm getting kind of tired too. A friend of mine is wanting to transition their career from a background in legal studies to technology, specifically quality assurance or software tester, similar role to that. Perhaps even a site reliability engineer, SRE. But I'm adding that since that's my focus during my day job. Nonetheless, I'd like to help this friend to prepare job skills, CV, and LinkedIn profile to appeal to potential employers, including one employer that they may have an upcoming interview with. One challenge is they don't have a lot of background and experience. They've participated in a boot camp and they are currently enrolled in some courses. So we may need to present their CV in a way that doesn't highlight the lack of experience, but rather emphasizes the potential. In parallel, though, perhaps we could look at a roadmap for career development that would give them, at the very least, a portfolio of valid and verifiable skills and projects demonstrating their ability to perform as a quality assurance or engineer or software tester. All right, let's just see what we get here. All right, so we're going to work on that. Site reliability engineering might be one to put on your radar. It's actually pretty interesting stuff. And it's really relating to the quality assurance and developer operations and continual development and delivery, but also making sure services are running and they're keeping your quality standards high and you're meeting not only expectations, but agreements, and you're measuring things you're able to see inside the running system. So let's see. It's giving us some particular advice. It went beyond the request quite far. So we're gonna, suggesting you have a perhaps CV and LinkedIn profile that are kind of consistent, so you have the same information in both places. That makes sense. Aspiring quality assurance engineer with foundation in legal studies and a passion for technology. Recent graduate of a comprehensive coding boot camp and currently enhancing skills through advanced courses. Transitioning from legal studies to technology with a focus on quality assurance and software testing. Boot camp graduate and continuous learner eager to apply analytical skills in tech. Those are kind of cool. Headlines, at least. We have to list your skills. You have to list your skills and methodologies. You mentioned Agile, Selenium, basic testing skills, Python. Get good at one language, real good at it, like Python. Go deep. Learn about static typing. It's the thing right now. It's basically. A really useful thing too. It's not just like a hype, it's very important. Then your personal and transferable skills. Yeah, if you want, let's see, I don't know if this is probably, that's true. And that's one kind of gotcha. You're going to be careful about toning down the language. And you might, you also don't just obviously use the output directly. And, you know, I don't have any formal education, so I don't emphasize that. But since I don't have that, I need to really lean heavily on my visible experience, which is as an open source developer. I have like my GitHub profile speaks a lot about sort of how often and what types of things I'm working on. That's a really important thing. I have a lot of visible activity there. As I was developing my skills, I was always building a publicly visible portfolio of projects and experiences. And that also helps you in an interview, because then you can actually demonstrate your skills in a live coding environment or with a take-home exercise. And then do you have any certifications or courses? Yeah, that was my GitHub profile for a long time too. Just little JavaScript, you know, I think I was studying the R language for a while. I just had some kind of stuff from a textbook I was reading, and you know, I was experimenting and committing those. But do it, yeah, just build that habit. And as a QA engineer and a software tester, or a site reliability engineer or software engineer, any of those directions you'll go, you're going to need to know Git and have that in your sort of DNA. That's just part of your working process. Commit often. Don't do huge commits. Commit small changes. And it's not really, don't try to game the GitHub graph or whatever, but you should have some fairly consistent activity. Consistency is really important for building skills, for showing up. You know, people look for people who are consistent. Employers look for people who are consistent. So having a consistent string of activity on GitHub, I think, is going to score you a couple points in the interview at least. It's not a, you know, not the definitive thing, but and don't game it, like I say, because then that's kind of obvious. Don't write your name on your GitHub graph. And since you don't have a lot of work experience, you really got to lean on that. But in the meantime, I think it's very practical. You can't, obviously, I'm sorry if I'm sounding preachy, but this is sort of like the kind of mode I'm in with these, with this team, this Tech Ventures, and myself too, because I'm working on SRE stuff right now. So I have like no background in site reliability engineering, but it really interests in an opportunity to pursue it. So that's what I'm doing. And really it's about daily practice. And so that's what I'm doing at work. Okay, cool. So yeah, set yourself, and you're already able to do this. I think you have sounds like you got pretty good time management skills. Maybe, you know, university's not for everybody, of course, that's a whole nother thing. But it sounds like you've completed a boot camp, you're motivated. So keep developing this portfolio and your courses and certifications on some sort of a platform, if you can, like edX or Coursera. It's a bit tricky with the quality assurance, isn't it? And you might take that mindset out of software into like the industrial process and project management, which is where you kind of, it's a bit more meta, but it's about bringing that quality assurance mindset to like organizational processes and projects to make sure that they're successful. So Six Sigma, project management, then I'm doing site reliability engineering, as they call it, and that's about processes and infrastructure and things like that. And that comes from my background as a software engineer. Now these are free. Yeah, and I'm sure you know of Coursera. So it seems like the University of Minnesota has a couple of really good ones. They also taught this Python class there. Oh yeah, lean philosophy, that's really important. I think especially with like the economic situation and a lot of Silicon Valley companies sort of like overextending themselves, like getting huge sometimes windfalls of money, but just really just spending it. So just setting it on fire in a lot of cases, it seems so wasteful. And you have to burn it in order to earn it. You have to, if you want more Silicon Valley CV money, you have to like show you're spending the money. You're growing by spending it and not growing necessarily as a sustainable business. I'm not deeply versed in that, but I think there's some ways that companies kind of have this mindset that, to acquire your first customers, it's a loss. You have to lose money. You have to spend more than you receive, and that's just part of the game. That's why we need this VC funding. But I think there's a middle ground, sort of like a bootstrapping mentality. Companies can bring in. The company where I work, they're sort of, I think, really trying this one now. There's a couple markets that we're just, going to be losing in, but I think there's this awareness that to survive, you have to like think about sustainability. Okay, so there's this certifications there. And then what else did we get? So finish those for 0 to 6 months, build a portfolio, take your portfolio beyond scripts and beyond simple applications. I'm trying to think, if you want to write software unit tests, I've got an open source project I'm working on that would gladly take contributions. It's Python based, so all of the code, is written here. It's just Python files. And I already have some tests suites written, so there's a lot of reference code, and we're really trying to emphasize on this project our coverage, code coverage, maintainability, and things like that. So just putting it out there, this would, all your contributions would show up on GitHub and be part of your sort of portfolio, so to speak. I'm not using Selenium, but actually this project doesn't really have any front-end tests like Selenium tests. So that could actually be, I've got all Python tests in the back end. The coverage is pretty comprehensive, but it's because I'm not testing, I'm not measuring the coverage in my templates. If I enable the Django template coverage analysis, I think we would drop down to about 60 or 70%. And that's where with Django it's able to test that by writing Python, or we would add Selenium to this. So yeah, that's a really good option for getting some practical experience, internships, volunteer for QA roles, and contribute to open source projects. And that's literally how I started out. I got an internship at a school in California. Was there for a couple of years, almost 3 years, and then started doing open source stuff. And my first job, second job was for doing like exclusively open source. I just started like writing code, boom. And that's another thing for quality assurance and software testing. You sort of, it helps to have a background in software development, because inherently you've got to know how software works to know what to test and how to test it in a way. You can't really separate the testing from the development to a certain extent. It depends on what kind of tests, of course. Okay, I don't know. I think that was bad advice that they gave you, because I think a lot of open source projects are glad to have contributors. We highlight, we show, hey, all these people have helped us out, you know, in different ways. Some people have like give us bug reports. They've tested stuff out. Some people have just told us some ideas. We've got some people that have helped us with documentation, you know. Some have contributed code, some have helped us improve our security. So there's these initiatives, like all contributors, that are designed to help open source projects foster community and recognize like all sorts of people who can contribute, not just coders. And testing is one of the most important things. And then there's like get good first issues. One of these two. I'm not actually exactly sure, but you know, there's like just a lot of projects that I think are set up to have people help. And what we do is pretty common. It's I'll just show you on GitHub what it looks like. So in our backlog, we have a bunch of issues that are open, and we're using labels here to say, hey, this one's good for newcomers. Hey, we need help with this one. And we also have a developer guide in our docs to say, hey, here's how to get set up, the development environment. And we could add a test section on user interface testing with Selenium, because we haven't done any of that. Our whole user interface is sort of, it's so kind of tightly coupled with the back end in most cases that I think testing the back end code has given me enough confidence that things are working, but there are certainly some cases where some bugs have crept through in the user interface or in our administrative interface. Okay, very cool. Thanks. I appreciate it. And I'll be glad to help with any questions you have. If you have any trouble setting stuff up, just open a discussion here. Let me know, and I'm on GitHub like all the time. Yeah, and are there any like conferences or anything? Yeah, so this is pretty solid response just from one prompt. And we usually go further in to certain sections and give it more specific information and context details about the skills and things like that. Hey, Clutch, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna head out too. I'm getting pretty tired. It's 11:30 here, but it's been nice chatting, and hope to see you around the stream. All right, well, I'm gonna do a quick summary, and I'm gonna hop off as well. So I'll just go to the BRB screen, and then I will come back and summarize. the pull request here. Close a few tabs. Maximize this. Show the user interface, and we don't need the docs. See, this is kind of stuff that a linter wouldn't really give you a suggestion to use the unique constraint. I like that. Let's add that. It's a failure case. It could prevent it from inserting. And I have to do it in a migration. So how do we do this? Comment link, apply suggestion. Very cool. And this one's pretty good too. I'll apply that. That's gonna fix that. And then the indentation got a little bit messed up there. Looking good though. Those are actually a couple of good suggestions from the sorcery bot. I like it. We'll resolve those. All right, let's go ahead and do an outro here. Hello, welcome to a recap of today's Code with Brylie live stream. We've been working on the Western Friend project at github.com/westernfriend and in the westernfriend.org repository. This project is live online at westernfriend.org, and we've been working on a sort of a feature today to feature request, kind of a bug, but more of a feature. Be able to find PayPal transaction IDs when reviewing bookstore orders in the admin interface. So it's this issue number here, 1070, and a related issue. And it looks like this. Wagtail lets us define custom content listings. It's a content management system. And we've defined like an e-commerce bookstore that accepts online payments, and you define books. People can create orders. All of this code is available in the repository, so I won't deep dive into how it works, but we'll look at the feature we made today. So when we're listing orders here, we'll notice that there are some details about the order, such as when it was created, which we actually added today, this field. It wasn't there prior. And some purchaser details, which I've made up here, and payments, which have gone to the PayPal payment processor sandbox in this case. And most recent payment shows a transaction ID, which was the feature I added today. Previously, we were sort of capturing the order ID from the PayPal response when creating the order and capturing the payment for the order. But we couldn't use that ID in any meaningful way on the PayPal website. We were trying to look up orders to see, who paid for this? Did this come from our bookstore? Sometimes it wasn't clear. There was there's other ways that people are paying this organization via PayPal, sometimes just directly and not from the website here. And so cross-referencing is very important for many reasons, including we may need to issue a refund or something like that. So since we couldn't use the order ID, even though the PayPal activity listing lets you filter by order ID, it wouldn't come up with any results. I'm not sure. There's some kind of a bug there. But by default, it does use this transaction ID. So how did we get this? It was a little bit tricky, and I understand now why I didn't get the transaction ID before. I just didn't know to look for it. But I read through the PayPal docs and worked with ChatGPT a little bit and wrote some code, and we got it working. So let's just take a look at the code real quick. So we have a couple of migrations. I'll just kind of skip over these. This is where I'm adding the PayPal transaction ID field. And this is where I added modified the created at field, so it will set the created at date to now when the order is created, only on add. And here's where I'm ensuring the PayPal transaction ID is unique. We'll look at the code for this. So we have an order model here. It consists of a lot of fields, but basically you can see we're in orders.models, and it's still going. We have an address and everything else on an order, and recipient address, shipping cost is calculated, whether or not it's been paid, and we have some PayPal metadata here. We have the order ID and the payment ID, which actually happen to be the same string. It's kind of weird, and that string can't be used in the PayPal interface in any meaningful way, as I mentioned. But now we have a new field for the transaction ID, which you can use in the PayPal activity filter view search, whatever it is called. So we're just character field with max length of 255. Since our older orders don't have that, we didn't capture that, we need to let it be blank in the user interface and defaulting to empty string and unique. Now this could be a gotcha, but there shouldn't be multiple orders with the same transaction ID. So this was suggested by our AI companion here, and I said, okay, we'll make that. And all we did here is changed the created at date from auto now is true to auto now add is true. That way it won't automatically set created at every time you edit the order. So essentially what we do here is we get a response back from PayPal when we are capturing the order. And from that response, it has some nested data. It has a purchase units list of dictionaries, and it'll have, we grab the 0th item because there should only be one item in that list. We guarantee that there's an item here by setting the default value to an empty list with one empty dictionary. Then within the purchase units first dictionary, there's a payments field that has a dictionary, and we want to make sure that that's there. So we have a fallback. And then the payments has a captures list. We grab the 0th item there with a fallback to always have at least, as you know, an empty dictionary if it doesn't exist. Then we need the ID. So basically what this is saying is the PayPal response from the order capture has a purchase units payments captures ID, which PayPal then calls transaction ID in their user interface. So I'm getting that as a transaction ID here, so that at least the user-facing code is consistent. But getting here was a bit fraught, not ideal. And we're just kind of making our code a little bit safe, even though we've got these fallback values. We've got an extra layer of exception handling, and we're defaulting to an empty string. So that's it. Now we just add that to the order. We add this transaction here to the order PayPal transaction ID, save it like normal, and display it in the user interface. We're putting it both in the listing view, the table as a column, but also in the search fields, so that if I just have this one and I want to search for my orders and we submit that, site's not running, but it'll just narrow it down to that one. So I'll just demo that real quick. And I've got an unapplied migration, but it shouldn't affect it. There we go. There we go. So now we can cross-reference both in the PayPal search user interface and in the Wagtail user interface. It was a bit of a challenge, but I'm glad we were able to do that. This is a very important identifier, and it's, you know, relating to money and transactions that we may need to refund, and people may need receipts or other tax write-offs and things like that. So we need to kind of make sure we can make it as easy as possible to identify transactions and the purpose for that transaction, such as placing a bookstore order. All right, so that's a recap of today's live code hangout. If you'd like to get involved with this project, stop by github.com/westernfriend and westernfriend.org repository. We do have a lot of issues here, and I'm doing my best to label some of them as good first issues when they're kind of like low-hanging fruit, not too much involved. Help wanted, on some of them, they're mostly a good first issue and help wanted. Some of them are a little more complicated. I'm always available if you've got an idea or need some help, and you can open a discussion thread. And we can also use some help, as came up in the conversation after writing code today, with some kind of front-end testing, some testing the templates, making sure that the user interface is working as we expect. I've got a pretty good code coverage here for the back-end code. And so we were glad to have contributors of all types, though, but testing in particular is very important for our project. So thanks for your time. Have a great day.